Hey, and welcome to the Parenting on Purpose podcast, your podcast to mirror your self-development journey with your parenting journey, because it is amazing what can be accomplished with a little bit of purpose. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to Parenting on Purpose. All right, parents, welcome back to Parenting on Purpose. I'm so excited to invite Miss Anastasia Arauz with us this morning. I'm so excited to have you. How's it going, Anastasia? Welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Caitlin. Glad to be here.
I fell in love with your bio and the specific things that you focus on within families. So Anastasia is a licensed therapist and coach and has worked in the school system as a teacher. By the way, like big heart out to teachers. My mom just retired from being a teacher. It is hard to be a teacher nowadays. I can't even parent my own two. I don't even know. And now you have a practice and you work specifically with coaching the parents, right? So you kind of have come full circle. So we're going to have a really fun topic today. Anastasia focuses on a lot of things, but what we're really going to hone in on is how to stop generational trauma and generational cycles. You do the things as parents where you see yourself doing something and you know it was because it happened to you as a kid and you really want to break that cycle. So we're going to go on Anastasia's expertise today, and I'm really excited to share it. So again, welcome to the show. But before we do that, Anastasia, please start us off with one thing that you do in your life every day to show up on purpose.
Oh, I try to be present with my kids every single day. I put the phone down. I am with them. I listen to what they're saying, and I really just try to be there with them and hold space for them.
That is so beautiful. I love that. Okay, so that can mean different things, right? I love the holding space. So maybe give me like an example of how that looks in your day to day. Like you got clients, you're on Zoom, and the kids are coming home from school. What does that look like for you?
It's being very structured with my schedule, for one. So in the mornings, I pretty much directly am focused on the kids, and so I don't do anything work related. So everything is just me getting lunch ready, being there with him, driving him to school. We listen to a book. We're listening to Harry Potter right now.
I love that.
Something that we can relate to together. And then the minute I drop him off, it kind of all changes. I get into work mode and I can do my phone calls. I do my texting, my emails, all my things. But it's really, and then the minute he comes in the car from home, it's back just very focused on him.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I was watching a productivity video the other day and it talked about like how you can take an 8-hour workday and kind of put it into like 4 or 5 really condensed hours. Because if you think of it, if you have an 8 or 9 or a 10-hour workday, like how much of that is you on your phone, you checking in with the kids, you at the water cooler, people don't do that any day nowadays, but drinking their Celsiuses or whatever. It's like we really do spread it out. And if you can be focused and really be present with where you are, you can get a lot more done in a short amount of time. So I love that. And I have never ever had anyone tell me that they listen to audiobooks with their kids. That is brilliant.
Really? Such a great way to spend time in the car because it's not the radio. And then sometimes you don't have anything to talk about. So I'd rather, and then we could talk about the book.
So I will say I've done this with my daughter, my 16-year-old, and it'll be more like a video or a podcast on YouTube. And we'll kind of walk through it. But I have an Audible subscription. I have all my books. And when my son gets in the car, he can hear them. So this is like I'm going to do this. I'm so happy to share that. What a great idea. I love it. Great way to be present. Good. Very good start. Okay. So let's delve into the main topic here. Obviously you have a lot of knowledge. So we're going to play and kind of just free flow. But I really this is what made you stand out to me, breaking these generational cycles and traumas. So what have you noticed? How do we do it? Anything you want to start with?
Yeah, of course. I think it's hard. It's not easy. And it takes work. It takes time. And it takes a lot of grace from yourself and for yourself because we're so used to being like we were as a kid or how we grew up in our own families.
Yeah.
And so we repeat a lot of the same patterns unless we purposely try to break them, which can be done through therapy, through coaching, through your own internal work, maybe you listening to books or meditating, whatever it is, but you definitely have to do some kind of work to break that cycle or that trauma. It's not just going to happen because your brain is wired the way it's wired. And so to change it, you've got to wire it differently.
Do I understand correctly? Like this is kind of in your subconscious now. So this is kind of in like you mentioned, your wiring. So I imagine there are a few steps to this becoming a path. Like one is probably recognition, or maybe even before recognition is like responsibility, claiming responsibility for the type of environment and culture in your family, and then recognition. Can you walk us through some of like the steps and like what you do with your clients so they can, one, understand there is a problem, two, understand how to pinpoint what it is, and then three, how to be more intentional so that they can shift one reaction with another?
Yeah, of course. And I think like what you just said, Caitlin, like it's really taking responsibility first. I mean, like this is not working. And so once you realize like this, something's going on in my family, it's not working. I'm repeating a lot of the same things my parents did, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing it, but it just keeps happening anyway. So the first step is really just trying to figure out that why and when it's happening. And then how much work do you
Okay.
want to do to try to like solve it? And so that can be individually through therapy, through your own work. Maybe
Hmm.
you have a spouse. Maybe you guys want to do something together because that your spouse is also struggling. So I think first it's the responsibility, really seeing that there's something wrong and being like, I'm going to do something and taking action.
Yeah.
And then it's finding how the action, what is that action going to be? What kind of support are you going to look for? What kind of support are you going to use to help you change these cycles that you do not like in your family or for yourself?
Okay. Yeah, and something you mentioned that I wasn't expecting is the when does this happen? So that kind of made me think of the triggers. Like, what is
Yeah.
triggering me? Like for me, if I'm being
Yes.
radically honest, like sometimes if I don't have a good morning planned out, like very strategically, it's so easy for me to like be short with my son.
Yeah.
And we have a 4 month old, right? So obviously, like
Oh my
I'm in the
gosh.
middle of like feeding or breastfeeding, and then trying to take him to school and rush out to work, and it obviously, like you said, it's easy to not do this. But you're here as listeners because you got it all going on. You can do it, right? And you can't always do it
Yeah.
perfectly, and you can't always do it all, but
Mhm.
you can be 1% better every day. And I think that's what we all have in common, is that pursuit of just self-improvement. um,
Mhm.
okay, so the when, and then the other thing that you said was having an end, like having an idea of what you want to be instead. So I think that
Mhm.
I would love for you to clarify on that, because it's
Yeah.
one thing to know that something's not working, but it's a whole nother to have an idea of where you want to go, and then be able to put intentional swaps in there with your
Mhm.
behaviors. So can you play into maybe some examples or give me a little bit more on that?
Yeah, of course. So I think the morning is a great example. So say you have to work in the morning, you have a few kids, you have to get everybody out the door. And so
Yeah.
kids really shouldn't be rushed. They don't do very well when they're rushed. They a lot of times struggle. They'll have a lot of breakdowns, a lot of
Yeah.
chaos. But that happens sometimes, right? So maybe that then triggers you and you start yelling and you're short with them, or you don't help them and give them the support that they need. And you're like, wow, this is not working. So then what I would do with a parent is figure out, what can we do? Let's take some steps back. What is one thing we can do different in the morning so
Mhm.
it isn't as chaotic? It isn't that just thing that's happening every single day that is stressing everyone out. So maybe it's getting up a little bit earlier. Maybe it's going to bed a little bit earlier so you can get up a little bit earlier. Maybe it's doing a meditation. Meditation does so much for the brain. Maybe it is having a partner help you, or even I've had parents have like a house helper, child
Yeah.
helper
Yeah. Yeah.
that takes their kids to school. So there's always something that you can tweak or change to help like that chaotic morning. That's just like an example of something.
So sticking on the morning example, because I'm
Yeah.
selfish and it helps me. No, just kidding. Um,
Yeah, of course.
no, I can think that like most adults, that would be a common theme. So sticking with that example, what I gather from what you are saying is there are a few levers to pull. Like one could be like a task based or like a tactical based thing, getting
Hmm.
up early, like laying out your clothes, those type of
Hmm.
things. So that's one lever. But what I also heard you say, which I think combining these two, it might be the magic, at least for me, is the lever of like intentionality and gratitude,
Yeah.
and like a mental focus. So
Hmm.
it's one thing to get your mind right first, whether that means you get up 10 minutes early and do a 5 minute stretch and flex or a 5 minute meditation, just so you're primed
Yeah.
to take on the day in a better way and not be as triggered in culmination with, the things that you can do.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's amazing. obviously you're speaking that for the parent, but I can see an argument for involving your kids in that, right? Like when my son was
Yeah.
3, I used to have him do a morning journal,
Yeah.
because I noticed that, like we were just talking about, I noticed that he would get up and he would be easy to be upset.
Okay.
He didn't want to go to school or things like that. And I'm like, I don't want him to start each day with not happiness in his heart. How do
Mhm.
we fix that? So we started journaling. We should probably get back to it because
It's
school
so
just started
cool.
back up. So we should probably restart that practice. So I'm assuming you can also do this with your kids and integrate it, which is
Yeah.
great. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love that. No, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. And I think what's really important is what you said too, is doing something for yourself that's good, because it's sort of like that whole put the air mask on for yourself on the airplane. You have
Right.
to do that first before you're going to help anybody else. And there's so much, and our parents didn't know this, but there's so much research now on
Yeah.
meditation, on taking those few minutes for ourselves, that it is going to do a world of difference for you, your kids, your day, the people you're interacting with. And I think that because it's such a different way, that a lot of people just don't realize how effective it can be, because our parents didn't do that. We didn't see our moms sitting around just like getting up early and meditating typically.
Yeah,
You might
exactly.
have, but many parents, my mom didn't. It was not even something anybody really thought about. So I think figuring out how you can take that time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, um, is helpful to build in. And like you said too, if you can get your kids somehow, I love an app called Calm, CALM. I don't know if you use that, but
It's like the meditation one or like mind
yeah,
space. Yeah. Awesome.
it's so good. And they have
So good.
so many great little meditations on there for kids. They have like
Yeah.
Thomas the Train, they have just
Oh,
their,
there you go.
and they even have them so they're like 3 to 5 year olds,
Yeah.
and then you have
Perfect.
5 to 7. So they break it up in developmental ages, because you can't expect like a 3 year old to sit there and just
Yeah. Do a
do the
15-minute
thing.
meditation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's
I'm
not
35. I
happening.
can't even do it. Yeah.
I know it's very difficult.
I get very eat, pray, love. I'm like looking around. It's been 30 seconds. No.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So
yeah,
before we started recording, and you just mentioned it again, so I want to circle back here. You were talking about things that we saw our parents do.
yeah.
And it made me think about, as someone with your decades of experience, and I was looking at all your credentials. You have like all the letters and the masters and the postmasters and all the things. So with someone of that much expertise and experience, you have to have some commonalities that pop up to you with your clients. Like I'm wondering if there are certain things that most people struggle with that they're trying to do better than their parents did. I'm
Yeah.
imagining like not being triggered is like one of those things. I would love to hear your thoughts on like maybe a few others, and then any tips or anything that comes to your heart that could help our parents.
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people now don't want to spank their kids. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And they don't, sometimes they might not know what to do. I do notice sometimes the men will go to that first, or that's something that they just want to do. So it's really
Yeah.
reteaching that yelling, shaming. That was a big one. Like the shaming was big when I was growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just that whole parenting of like, it's authoritarian where you're just like, I'm in charge and you need to sit down, you need to listen to me. Even if you're not yelling, it's that fear-based parenting that we
Exactly.
grew up with. And in my mom, as much as she loves me and loved me, she used it all the time. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
teenager, if you're not back by 12, you're going to end up da 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 da, whatever. And so really learning how to move away from that fear-based parenting to more
Yes.
of like, just a calmer, more just trusting your kids more, respecting them more, understanding that they're humans just like we are.
So yes, I'm with you. I love this. Easier said than done sometimes.
Yes.
All the things. I just have like, I always joke with my 16-year-old because she's older. I'm like, if I was amazing, if I was like perfect, like where were you going to grow? Like you gotta be like a solid middle of the Maslow's hierarchy triangle so you can amp it up. Total joke. I try my
Yeah.
best. Okay, so I love what you just said, and I want to probe a bit further. So obviously we don't want to shame, and we don't want to use like the authoritative or the fear-based parenting is how you
Yeah.
said it. So from a, this is what you do day in and day out, right? But like for the layman, why do we not want to do that? And then what are some healthy swaps?
Yeah, that's great. So the reason why is it creates so much anxiety. And if you listen to the news, if you listen to anything, everyone is running around with anxiety. Everyone's on medication. Everyone is stressed out. And a lot of that is because we have all of these fears inside of us. We're living in
Yeah.
fight flight. We're living in this like fear mode constantly. And that's because we were parented in that way. And so to reduce the anxiety for your child is one way, one
Hmm.
huge reason not to do it. So yeah, I mean, I think the anxiety is a huge reason that you don't want to parent that way. And then some swaps would be just thinking of your child as a human that is respected, and they're not your equal, but they are your equal. They're a person here just like you
Exactly.
are, and figuring out how you can phrase things or word things or talk to them in a way that is developmentally appropriate, also assertive, that they're going to understand. And we have to lead them. I'm not saying you have to be friends with your child, but you have to be able to lead them in a way that's respectful and guide them.
Right. That's awesome. Is that something that a lot of people struggle with in your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. And even I do. I mean, I'm 50, so I grew up in the 70s, 80s. And so my mom was all about that, like, listen to what I say, all that. My parents, wasn't spanked, but I definitely had that type of parenting. And so
Hmm.
even for me, with all my education, all the work I've done, I'll catch myself doing a
Yeah.
lot of these things. And I have to, the other thing I do a lot is I do a lot of repair of like, I'm
Okay.
so sorry I talked to you like that. That was not acceptable. I'm really sorry. Let's try this again. And I do that a lot because it just automatically comes out. Like you don't mean to do it. And
Yeah.
so kids are very forgiving. That's one really nice thing about kids. They're so present that they're super forgiving, and you can apologize and you can repair it pretty quickly and move on. And then they get it. They get that you're a human like them, and we all make mistakes, and you're not trying to be hurtful.
It is amazing what those two words, I'm sorry, like can really
Mm-hmm.
do. So I think I'm big on the repair as well. Because
Yeah.
even, even with the podcast and even like make this being a focus, like life happens, right? Or I'll be
Yeah.
short with my 16-year-old and I'm like, oh my God, honey, like my bad. Like that was on me,
Yeah.
girl. You did nothing wrong. Even with my 4-year-old, I'm like, baby, I'm sorry. Mommy was rushing this morning. Like you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And it really does, because you mentioned a second ago, like treating them as equals and kind of walking through life with them, like it makes them feel seen. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the parallel you made with fear-based parenting. Like if we're like, now that we're, not four, and we can emotionally remove ourselves from the way we were parented, like our parents were scared, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you have like, I don't know if you've ever done one of those meditations where you either like sit with yourself as a little
Yeah.
kid, or
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
sit and look at your parents as little kids. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
have an amazing relationship with my parents. They're like our best friends. These people will stay out till like 2 a.m. Like I don't know. They're party animals. It's amazing.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
so
I'm
cool.
exhausted. It's 8:30. Everyone leave the house right now. But like I have a great relationship with them, but still they are only the product of how they were raised. And then the
Yeah.
whole cycle continues. So when you can
Yes.
look at remove yourself emotionally and say, look, this had happened to me, that goes into the trauma component. This happened to me, but it doesn't mean I have to interpret it as my drama, my trauma. I can
Yes.
choose, right? Like we had a coach on in season 1, and she talked about like what actually creates trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily the thing that happened. It's how you respond to it
Yes.
emotionally,
How you
right?
process it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. It's like understanding that your parents probably had some fear going on, so they fear-based parented you. And if,
Yeah.
you're more present, then you can parent more presently. Can you run me through, this is super random, but I feel like you mentioned the authoritative kind of parenting. What are you more noticing people doing now? Because you'll see like on YouTube and like TikTok, all like the positive parenting and the soft-based parenting. So I'd love to see like your opinion on where you think we're going with that.
I think that people are really trying to be more of that, like the more not permissive, not neglectful, but more of that authoritative, because it's a
Okay.
combination of
Okay.
that flexible. And the authoritarian is the one that is more of that strict rules, the high standards, punishment, that type of parenting. So it's confusing with authoritative and authoritarian, but I see more, especially with the millennials and the generation Y. That's why. They are definitely trying to be more of that authoritative versus that authoritarian.
And would you say that stems from their parents being more like that toward them slightly than the generation before?
It could be. I think people are just more they're just paying attention now. And I think you
Sure.
mentioned it too about the Maslow's hierarchy. I don't think we're at the bottom as much. I think
Right.
we're higher up. And if you think about like just generationally, we're like in the United States specifically, just like how our parents and grandparents and great grandparents lived.
Yeah.
And that was during, there was the depression. And then you had all those different hard things happening politically or just in regards to financially. So they were living so much different. And
Yeah.
most of people that are in that millennial age, none of that, we didn't have that. They had a pretty good childhood. There wasn't a lot of like depression things happening and keeping all your foil and washing the foil, like that kind of stuff. We didn't have to do that as
Yeah.
much.
Exactly.
So I think that could be kind of part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that makes sense. Um, so I wanted to ask you about something that we talked about before we started recording, and you mentioned obviously like there are moments where a professional is absolutely needed, right? Like if there's any type of
Yeah.
abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, like these type of things, you absolutely want to have a professional. But from the way you work with your clients and what you try and instill in them is that a lot of these things, these coaching, therapy tactics can absolutely be done at home. So I would love for you to spend a few minutes elaborating on that.
Yeah, of course. So if it's not anything like severe, like you're saying, if your child has anxiety, ADHD, is struggling in school, just like things that are really hard that not on that extreme spectrum of it all, you can do it at home. And so I work with parents and I just help reteach and give new language and new systems to put in place. And so, yes, I do think it can be done at home. And honestly, if I do work with a family or see a family, I would refer out for therapy if I felt like they needed
Yeah.
it. So the therapy can be done, but then also you could do things at home to parent differently.
And you're a teacher, so my mom, like I said, was a teacher. So I
Yeah.
feel like any adage in like any home of for an educator is like, what we do in the classroom needs to be emulated at home. Like I am not
Yeah.
here to replace you as a parent, as a parent. I am here between these hours, and I have 45 kids in my class.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
so, it's understanding that again that goes back to radical responsibility, doesn't it? Like taking
Hmm.
ownership for what's going on in your walls, and the beautiful thing about that is you can make it better, right? And you obviously are the
Yeah.
type of people that want to make it better because you're here. um,
Yeah.
so give me an example then of maybe a family or parents that you've worked with, and there's like this type of stress. Maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's ADHD, or they have something going on with their kids. What are the things that you gave them to implement into their life, just so we can get a little bit of a like
Yeah, of course.
some tactical things?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I do is help people stay accountable. So we create schedules. I'm really big on just learning. Initially, I like to know the values of the family. So I
Yeah,
just want to
cool.
know like what are your values? What are you trying to teach your children? How do you want them to grow? And then really establishing some schedules and some routines
Awesome.
in place for them, even if it's on a Saturday. Because some families, Saturdays are like the most craziest days for them because the kids are there all day, everybody's tired. No one they don't know what to do, or if they go out, everyone's a mess, tantruming, whatever. They can't stay regulated.
Yeah.
So really helping families see how to put a schedule in place, even if it's flexible. And it's different for everybody. It's different for
Sure.
every family. Just creating more flow, less
Okay.
chaos, more
Love
flow.
that.
Hmm.
And in those schedules, obviously they're going to be based on each family, but I'm sure they have similar components, right? Probably like some structured activity time, some alone time, some time to talk about the harder things that are happening. Like what are some of those key scheduled components that we should be integrating?
Yeah, so I really am big on family meetings once a week. So, really trying to figure out how to make that part of your family. And a family meeting basically is just talking about what everybody is needing during the week. So, I'm really
Nice.
big on those family meetings. And from that family meeting, creating what that structure is going to be for the week. Another thing would be just everything from getting up in the morning. What does that look like? To like when it's time to go to bed or downtime. What is
Okay.
that? And being very clear on what each part of the day looks like. So breaking it up in the morning, what does that look like? And it's okay if you don't know. And that's why I'm here. I try to really help people understand that it can be fun. Like life should not
Yes.
be so
Yes.
hard. And your kids, you should be enjoying your kids and having fun with them.
Amen. Love
And a
that.
lot of people aren't. And that's really what I'm trying to help them do, is have a good time with their families.
Well, you talk about mission and values, so that's a great one, right? Just having
Yeah.
helping people just see a little bit more of that joy and have fun in life, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Again, I'm seeing two kind of common threads to the way that you
Yeah.
run your practice, which I think is great. One is like tactical, like actual physical schedules, just so we can all be on the same page and, like you said, create more flow. And then again, there's the mental health, emotional component, which is let's all make sure each family member feels seen in that family meeting, right? So that each
Yeah.
person has a chance to do to tell us how they're feeling. I had a fitness instructor on the other day, and she does thumbs up, thumbs down with her kids. They'll be playing football or something. She's like, "What was your thumbs up today? What was your thumbs
Yeah.
down?" Because it's just an opportunity for the kid in play, and we're going to talk about play here in a second, to share something meaningful, for
Hmm.
them to be seen and really heard. So again,
I
I
love
love what
that.
you're saying, and it's so simple when you say like have a schedule, but as you walked through that with me, it actually really helped me to understand what you meant, because it's that coming together and then being all on the same page with how you align your life so that you are on purpose, so you are intentional.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, love
exactly.
it.
And it's like, one of the things I always tell parents is that kids love, like, they love knowing what's going to happen. They
Yeah,
love predictability. They love that's why most kids do really well in school, because it's such a structured environment and they know what's going
yeah,
to happen now. They know what's going to happen next. And so if you can give them that predictability, it's going to lower their anxiety. They're going to feel safe. They're going to feel grounded. And
yeah.
that right there is going to help a ton, because whenever kids don't know what's happening and you're kind of chaotic and everything, their
Of course.
bodies are just like super anxious and they just don't feel safe.
A
Not that
lot
you're
of
going to hurt them, but just safe, like just
yeah.
grounded,
They're in
safe.
fight or flight. There's a lot of
Yes.
cortisol, and then
Yes.
you're
Good.
trying to hurdle them for school, and they're going to give you a hard time,
Yeah,
right?
they are. Yeah.
That actually helps me a lot,
Exactly.
because I have one of those kids who's like so high emotion, and he's so wicked smart, but like
Yeah.
he's the life of the party, or he's like makes the whole world want to cry if he cries,
Yeah.
like he's that kid. And this is so helpful to me, because I want to get back in my journaling and just do some mindful
Oh,
moments with
good.
him in the morning, so that
Hmm.
he gets to start his day on a baseline, because it helps all of us start our day on a better
It
baseline.
does. Yeah. It's about helping
Uh,
grounded. Yes.
Exactly.
For sure.
Um, that was awesome. So a few minutes ago, we were talking about mental health, and
Hmm.
the common thread is like making sure that we're doing a better job of just enjoying life. So I know play therapy is something you really integrate a
Yeah.
lot. So I'm like really excited. This is a great topic to
Yeah.
kind of wrap up on. But what is play therapy? And
Yeah.
for the parents who look at it and say, "Well, my kid's not two anymore. How do
Yeah.
I integrate play therapy into my parenting?"
Yeah, of course. So before I did my coaching, I had my own private practice and I did play therapy with children. And basically, what it is a way to see kids where they're at. You meet them where they are. So, kids, a lot of times, or all the time, they don't have the same language skills that we do because they're young and they don't have the ability to express in words how they're feeling or what happened. And that's okay because they're little. Even if they're 7, 8, or 9, they're not going to be able to fully express verbally if something bad happened to them,
Sure.
because their brains just aren't cognitively able to do that yet.
Yeah.
And so through play therapy, through play is a child's words. So through play, you're able to help them express it more and express it in a way that they're comfortable. And so, one of the really interesting things as I teach parents is, whenever you're doing play with your kids, say playing with them at home, try not to ask them any questions during the play.
Mm.
Just be with them. You can reflect, you can restate, you can make a statement, but don't ask any questions. And in that way,
Okay.
when you don't do that, they're leading. They're going to be doing
Okay.
all of it. So you just try not to ask. So, say like you have a dollhouse, or you're playing in the dollhouse. Don't ask, like, where should my doll go? Just sit there until they say something, or be like, my doll, my person, or whatever you want to say, is just standing here. We're just hanging out. So just trying not to act,
Okay.
letting them lead the whole thing, or not even saying anything. Let the kids, and then you're going to start seeing things as they're playing. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes it's just silly, fun play. But
Sure.
sometimes you'll see things in their play. But kids, it's really hard to sit and ask a ton of questions, because they are going to say things that they think
You
you
want to
want them to
hear.
say.
Yeah.
Um, or just they're not going to know what to say. And they're going to be like, I don't know. I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can get them to feel safe with you and in a play setting, you can get a lot out of them in regards to helping them process.
And the endorphin street runs both ways, right?
Yeah.
You're a teacher, so you'll love this. I saw a meme this morning. It was like a school. Let me know if you've seen this. A school hallway just full of balloons. Like the entire thing was filled up,
I haven't seen
and
that.
one teacher gave each kid in the school a balloon, and they all had to write their name on it. Then they all had to blow it up, and then she put them all in the hallway. So they had 30 minutes to go find the balloon with their name on it. Not one kid could find the
Ah,
balloon. The next exercise was for them to um find the okay I'm trying to remember it. It was this morning, it was before the coffee. It was for them to find the person. They all picked up a balloon, and instead of trying to find their own balloon, it was find the person's name that was on their balloon, and within 15 minutes the entire school had their balloon.
yeah, that's a great activity.
Isn't that cool? And it was
Yeah.
even the other kind of holistic component is they tied it back into happiness. And that's what I'm trying to tie into your play therapy is when you're out looking for your own
Yes.
happiness, it's really hard to find it. But when you're able to share happiness with somebody else, it's a lot easier to find yours too.
That's such a cool activity. I love that. And
Isn't that
that's such a
awesome?
true statement. Yeah. We all need each other. It's all about connection. It's all about connecting with each other in relationships.
As a teacher one, so I was sending it to my mom. She's like, "Oh, she'll like this." But it's like what you said with play therapy. It's when you're sitting there and you're like, with your kids, like you're having natural endorphins release. You're actually having fun, right? And that's what it's all about, right? Because
Mhm.
these are the good old days. They're gonna
Yeah.
be, whatever
Gone.
phase moves on, and you're gonna miss this. Anastasia, this was so awesome. I really love your lens. You have such a fun, light energy about you, and I just think it's refreshing to see. We meet so many amazing coaches and therapists, and when I started this podcast, I didn't realize how prevalent and how many types of coaches there were. And I say it all the time, but look at the most heartwarmings that I get are when I have client or listeners reach out to me that say, "Oh, I hooked up with Anastasia, or I hooked up with this
Oh,
person,
that's cool.
and they really helped us out." And this is what it's all about, guys. Like we have the ability here, like we're, with the amount of discretional income, and even if you're like, you're on a more limited budget, like we can vote with our time, energy, resources, how we make our lives better. So I love people being here because it is an investment of time. But to have people like you is another great investment too, right? So on that note, I want you to wrap us up. Where do people find you? What are some of the things you offer? I know you work remote, so you're kind of all over, but give us a little
Hmm.
bit of where people can find you.
Yeah, of course. I'm on Instagram. So anastasia.arauz. Definitely find me there, or my website, anastasiaarouz.com. Some of the things I offer, I do individual coaching. I have group coaching. I have a module program you can. So I have all types of levels of price points if people want to work on it. And I think that just the name of your podcast, The Parenting on Purpose, it has to be purposeful. You have to be wanting to do this. And sometimes that purpose is going to cost a little something. And so, whether it's with me, a therapist, another coach, if you feel like your family is struggling and you want it to be something a little more calm, less chaotic, reaching out to somebody that you find could be helpful and is a good match for you because not everybody is going to be, and being purposeful about it. But yeah.
I love that. I love how intentional that was. That was beautiful. This was great. Well, thank you for sharing space with us
You're welcome.
today.
Thank
Learned a
you.
lot. Really enjoyed your perspective. And parents, we're here every week. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Until the next perfect time, stay beautiful, stay inspired. See you guys.